Good morning and welcome to Let the Bible Speak. My name is Alex Meredith. I'm the preacher at the Marquette Church of Christ. So glad you're able to join us this morning. Today we're going to be talking about the Transfiguration. The Transfiguration is this event that occurs in the Gospels in the days of Jesus. And of course, it heavily involves Jesus. And this is going to be found in Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 through 8. If you have a chance, we'll get there in a minute. But if you have a chance, go ahead and turn there if you've got a Bible with you, whether that's on your tablet, on your phone, or if you've got a paper copy Bible. I want to show you something. This is a picture we're going to pull up here on the screen. This is my wife, by the way. Her name is Hannah. Now, what is it that makes something really beautiful? Because I think Hannah is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in the world. And you've got to, because when I look at her, there are lots of things that make her beautiful. I think her appearance is beautiful. I think that her character is beautiful, the way that she conducts herself and carries herself. I think that her voice, if you ever heard her sing, just absolutely beautiful. Now, here's something very different. We have a second picture for you as well. Now, this is also beautiful. This is a 2017 Aston Martin DB11 600 horsepower V12 engine. It goes 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. The way that it looks, the way that it sounds, oh my goodness. And it's English, by the way, so it is beautiful. But it is beautiful for very different reasons. I'll say this loudly and emphatically, for very different reasons than why my wife is beautiful, right? Now, you look at things, all over the world. I think Glacial National Park is beautiful for very different reasons than, for instance, the Opera Garnier. If you may have seen pictures of this beautiful place with gilded ceilings, murals all over. There are lots of different reasons why things are beautiful. And you got to think, okay, what is it that actually defines beauty? How are we to actually understand that? Because some people have suggested, and I think this is actually a pretty good idea, that beauty, because we are made in the image of God, that we have this intrinsic appreciation of beauty in so much as it is a reflection of God's character, or God's image, or God's beauty, right? So beauty is actually an appreciation of the divine. Some people have suggested that. I think that's a pretty good idea. Now, however you want to define it, I think there's no doubt that when we look around in our world and in our universe, there's no doubt that there are a plethora of amazing, incredible, beautiful, breathtaking things out there that you just look at and maybe you're left speechless, right? Okay, so Matthew 17, verses 1 through 8, one of those moments. This is a transfiguration. Now, the word for transfiguration is actually from the Greek. It's the same word we get metamorphosis, by the way, this changing. And you're going to see why here in a minute. Now, before we read this, you got to remember that up to this point, Jesus, while he's done all of these remarkable things, he looks kind of like an ordinary guy. He's done things that no ordinary person can do, but remember that description from Isaiah 53, verse 2, that said there is no thing in his appearance that really stood out, that made him all that spectacular. There's no unusual beauty about him, right? Okay, remember that. So Matthew chapter 17, we're going to start in verse 1. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John, his brother, so that's John James's brother, and led them up to a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. And Peter said to Jesus, Lord, if it is good that we are here, If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. He was still speaking when, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were terrified. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, Rise, and have no fear. And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. This reminds me of a passage a few chapters back in Matthew 13:43. It's actually talking about end times and all, and it says, The righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. And that's exactly what happens to Jesus here, isn't it? Now, if you were to go over to Israel today, and you were to go to a place called Mount Tabor, and this is just to the north of the desert Negev area. It's kind of in the northern region of that, to the west of the Dead Sea. And Mount Tabor, there are signs all over the place telling you that this is the location of the Transfiguration. And you can go and you can take a tour of the mountain, and they've got their, supposed spot where this supposedly happened and everything else. The truth is, we don't really know exactly where it happened. There's even some debate over whether it was that mountain. In fact, it doesn't really tell us what mountain. From the text, we know that they were in Caesarea Philippi before. That's over to the northeast. That's actually outside or sort of on the very edge boundary of the known Promised Land. So they were in Caesarea Philippi up in the north. And up there near Caesarea Philippi is another mountain called Mount Hermon. Now, Mount Hermon's pretty interesting. It's actually the highest elevation point in the Bible for those interested in random useless trivia. But Mount Hermon is this really isolated spot. That's the last place we know that they were. So I think there's a solid case to be made for them being here. And Mount Hermon, as high as it was, snowed up there even during the summer months, and it still does, actually, to my understanding. The snowy summit, you can climb up the edge of it. It's really isolated. Really, it's just beautiful. And you got to imagine, okay, they're in this beautiful location. They've taken this long hike up the mountain. Remember that the way that ancient people thought about mountains, this was their way of accessing the divine, coming into the presence of the divine. And it seems that Jesus, even in his ministry, is sort of working with people's understanding of that. So he goes up to the top of this mountain. Jesus' face begins shining. Not only his face, but also his clothing. And then you have the appearance of two of the most prominent figures in Judaism, Moses and Elijah, right? And then Peter, what does he do? Well, he kind of awkwardly inserts himself and says, hey, I could pitch some tents for you if you'd like. He's just trying to be helpful. He's trying to be hospitable, to his credit. And then you have this cloud descend upon him, and this booming voice from the cloud, this is my son. Listen to him. Can you imagine? The disciples here, Peter, James, and John, that came to witness this, they are witnessing the full glory of God. That's why, by the way, in verse 6, that's why they were terrified, because they realized the significance of what they were bearing witness to. And they realized that here they are in the presence of God himself, right? Now, in the English Standard Version, and the KJV also uses this word in verse 9. It's just after this event. In verse 9, it talks about this vision that occurred. Jesus is telling the disciples, tell nobody about this vision. Now, normally when we think about a vision, it's something artificial. It's something made up. It's something imagined, right? That's not the sense of the word here. The same word, by the way, in Acts chapter 7, verse 31, is used to describe the way that Moses reacted to the burning bush. He saw this vision. It's something more akin to this remarkable sight. All of that to say that this description of events here is not meant to be fictitious. It's not meant to be dramatized. You know how you see the ads and it says dramatization or something like that at the bottom in real fine print? This is not that. This is a remarkable sight This is something extraordinary that is actually happening in the presence of the disciples, right? It's real and it's breathtaking. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Now, a lot of things that happen here are callbacks to things that happen in the Old Testament. So you have, first of all, the appearance of Moses and Elijah. Now, why are they there? Well, remember, Moses in the Old Testament is the representative of the law. In fact, a lot of times we use the phrase Mosaic law to talk about Jewish law that was handed down to subsequent generations. The law that was handed down to Moses and all of the Israelites as Moses was up on Mount Sinai, not only the Ten Commandments, but also the entire law that Moses was commanded to write down and give to Israel. So Moses is a representative of law. And then Elijah is a representative of the prophets. You probably heard at some point, at different times in Jesus' ministry, he'll talk about the law and the prophets. You got to understand how important that was to Jewish minds here in the first century. The law and the prophets, that is the sum of Scripture. And if the representative of the law and the prophets are here to attest to Jesus' claims of divinity, his claims of messiahship, if they're there to attest to all of that, and you have this booming voice from the clouds also doing that, it's this undeniable verification, yes, this is the man who was promised, the Messiah that was promised from of old, the descendant of David that was promised in 2 Samuel 7, all of that. This is him, right? And remember who Matthew is writing to. He's writing to a very skeptical first century Jewish audience. So he's trying, by conveying this story, he's trying to show them, hey, this really happened, and by the way, these people that you revere and respect, they also are backing him, right? It's an endorsement. Okay. Then you have the shining face. I don't know if you remember a passage back from Exodus 34, right after Moses goes up on the mountain and he actually sees God's back. It's kind of an odd story, but in Exodus 34, God passes by Moses at Moses' request, but God tells him, I can only show you my back, for anyone who sees my face shall not live. So he passes by Moses, and after Moses comes down the mountain, we see this in Exodus 34, and I'll go ahead and read this to you. This is starting in verse 29. Something happens to Moses' appearance. Here we go. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand as he came down from the mountain, Moses did not know that the skin of his face shone because he had been talking with God. Aaron and all the people of Israel saw Moses, and behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come near him. But Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the leaders of the congregation returned to him, and Moses talked with them. Afterward, all the people of Israel came near, and he commanded them all that the Lord had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. And when Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil over his face. Whenever Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he would remove the veil until he came out. And when he came out and told the people of Israel what he was commanded. Okay, so there you have it. Moses encounters God, and his face shone, right? Now Jesus, he didn't need an encounter with God before his face shone, because he is God in the flesh. And here his face begins to shine, his clothing begins to shine. It's transfigured, changed before the disciples, right? And it's a callback to that moment. You're supposed to be looking at this and realizing, oh, there's something to this. There's something to his identity, right? Okay. Now, one last thing to point out here. Actually, there are 2 more things. You have the glory cloud. Remember that cloud that comes down and it says, this is my son, listen to him? 1 Kings chapter 8. Well, you can take a look at that if you'd like, but it's in 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 10 and 11. There's a cloud that descends upon the temple after the temple is built and dedicated, and this cloud, it's called the glory cloud, fills the temple, so much so that the priests are unable to minister within the temple. And that's supposed to be representative of God's presence. And so you have the same glory cloud coming down here at the Transfiguration, making this declaration, this is my Son with whom I am well pleased, listen to him. Again, there's supposed to be no doubt. This is the testimony, the witness that Jesus is who he says he is. And this isn't just a standalone story, though, is it? This isn't just, we made up this nice-sounding thing. No, there are witnesses to this event, right? Peter, James, and John, it goes out of his way, the text goes out of its way to talk about these three witnesses to this event. Now, you might remember from Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 15, it's actually talking about criminal law. This is part of Jewish law. And it says that if you are to bring an accusation against somebody, it must be brought not on your own, but on the charge of 2 or 3 witnesses. 2 witnesses was considered sufficient, it was enough, but 3 witnesses was considered undeniable. And here Jesus is with 3 witnesses, Peter, James, and John, to bear witness to this event. And he tells them right after, he says, don't tell anybody about this yet, but when the time comes, you're going to share this. And they do. And that's what this account is. It's a testimony of this event accounted to by not just 1, not just 2, but 3 witnesses. It's undeniable, right? This really happened. Okay, now we look at all of this and you go, okay, well, what do we do with this? Obviously, this is important. You look at where this is in the book. It's about halfway through. You see how important it is. You see this very fascinating trifold confession. Once it happens at Jesus' baptism, this is my Son. Now it happens at the Transfiguration, this is my Son. It's going to happen in a different way later on at the cross. So what do we make of this? We realize it's important, but what do Christians today actually do with this passage? Well, that's a good question. First of all, and maybe the most obvious answer, is simply that it's an opportunity to bear witness to the glory of God. It's an opportunity to bear witness to his glory, to his majesty, and to his beauty. Now, albeit in a different way than Peter, James, and John were able to. We don't get to see this in the way that they do, but we read about it, right? I think about John chapter 1, verse 14, in John's prologue to his gospel. This is what he says. He says, and the Word, remember back in verse 1, he had said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now in verse 14, he says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And we have seen his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. Jesus is a manifestation of the glory of God. And Peter, James, and John were able to see that in its fullness, and we're able to read about it through this account in Matthew 17. And I think that could be understated a little bit. You know, we live in a world that, I mean, you see it, it's so negative, right? Is it so bad? And by the way, not only is it negative, but our sense of beauty in the modern world has been so twisted. It really has. Remember earlier I mentioned that beauty is actually a reflection of the divine. How many people would actually say that? If you were to ask a lot of people today what beauty really is, I'm not sure a lot of people would even know what to answer, and if they did, I'm not sure it would be that. So it's a negative world. It's a world in which our understanding of beauty has been twisted, right? Is it so bad to just look at this passage and to just see something that's truly beautiful and to have our breath taken away a little bit, to just bask in the glory of God? Is that so bad? I don't think so. And I think that once we do that, once we are sufficiently in awe of God's glory, well, that has an effect on us. It leads us to praise. It leads us to obedience, hopefully. That's what was hopefully achieved in verse 5 there. This is my Son, my beloved Son. Listen to him, right? Once you're in awe, you then obey. Okay, so obedience is a product of that. And then it gives us something to aspire to. That's important. We need something to aspire to. We need a character to aspire to. Now, the second reason that this is important, and maybe the more significant reason, actually, is that it helps us to understand the cross. Now, bear with me for a second, because that might sound a little strange. How does this help us understand the cross? Think about these two events side by side. I know we're not there yet in Matthew, but you probably remember something about the story of the crucifixion. Think about the transfiguration that we just read about, and then think about the crucifixion. So you have the transfiguration occurring on the summit of Mount Hermon. Maybe Mount Tabor, I think probably Mount Hermon. So you have it happening on the summit. You have Jesus erected on a cross on the hill of Calvary, Golgotha, right? Him elevated, physically, geographically. You have Moses and Elijah, these two figures appearing on either side of Jesus. And you have the two robbers crucified on either side of Jesus. You have Peter so eager to help in this case. He says, Lord, it is good that we are here. Can we make some tents for you guys? What happens in the crucifixion? I don't know him. You don't have an eager willingness to help later. You have Peter's denial, right? He's not wanting to build 3 tents. Now he's denying Jesus 3 times. Okay? You have the cloud of glory that descends upon Jesus at the transfiguration. What happens at the crucifixion? Dark clouds covered the sky, and the world was turned to darkness. Okay? You have a cloud of judgment, maybe. In the transfiguration, you have this divine confession from God, this is my son. And then what do you have at the crucifixion? You have the centurion. The centurion who looks up at Jesus' dead body and said, surely this was the Son of God. In some way, the crucifixion is sort of a twisted, turned around version of the transfiguration. Now, as much as we might talk about the differences between the two, I think there is a striking similarity, which is that in both of those, the glory of God is obvious and evident. Now that might sound kind of strange. We talked about God's glory apparent in the transfiguration. I think that's fairly obvious. We see Jesus shining like the sun. But remember, back in John chapter 17, verse 5, what did Jesus pray? And now, Father, glorify me in your own presence with the glory that I had with you before the world existed. So he prays that the Father might glorify him. And then what happens? Shortly after, Jesus is crucified. Glory. Are you okay with that? I mean, yeah, when Jesus is standing on the summit of Mount Hermon, when everything's good and we've got this picturesque snowy postcard and Jesus is transfigured and shining like the sun, when all of that is happening, sure, glory, obviously. But also, when we're stooped at the foot of the cross and the world seems to be falling apart, glory. When we study hard and when we finally ace that test, glory. Glory, praise be to God. Also, when our child is sick and the days get long, glory. God doesn't need a mountain in order to make his glory known. God's glory can shine and transform lives in the darkest corners of the earth. All that he needs in order to do that is a cross. More specifically, he needs you being willing to bear your cross. Matthew chapter 16, verse 24. Then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. And in that way, by living these sacrificial lives, we actually get to participate in God's glory. What does that actually mean? Well, it means that you turn away from your sin, you're baptized into Christ, forgiven of your sin, and then you live the sacrificial, faithful life dedicated to God, doing whatever it takes to be obedient. Now, something really remarkable. If you do that, something really remarkable is going to happen. If you truly and earnestly do that, and you sacrifice your own interest for the interest of other people, then people around you start to see the glory of God through you. And before you know it, everybody around you is actually standing on the summit of Mount Hermon, looking at you and seeing God. If you do things the way that you're supposed to do them. One last passage I'll read to you here. This is from the book of James, chapter 1. Just a word of encouragement to you who are going to endeavor on this life of sacrifice. James chapter 1, verse 12, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life which God has promised to those who love him." Before we go, I want to tell you about some of the resources that we have to offer to all of our listeners. First of all, we have a Bible correspondence course. This is something that's published by the World Bible School. It is a 7-part workbook series program that you can participate in, and you can either choose to do this by mail or you can do it online. If you want to participate by mail, just let us know that you want to participate in it and give us your address so that we can send you the first couple books. You can also sign up for this online by going to worldbibleschool.org. They're not directly affiliated with us, but you can get started with them on that, worldbibleschool.org, and there's no cost for that, of course. If you don't have a Bible, we want to give you one. We have the hardcover ESV translation Bibles, the same translation we use here on the show. We'd like to give you one if you don't have one already. Just contact us with the information there up on your screen. You can contact us by mail at P.O. Box 372, that's in Marquette, zip code 49855. You can also find us online and a lot of the info at letthebiblespeak.net. Don't go to .com, that'll be something different. Go to letthebiblespeak.net. You can find all of these episodes, the audio for them. You can listen to them on all these apps you see up here on the screen, Spotify, Audible, iHeartRadio, Podbean. Feel free to look us up. Just search Let the Bible Speak UP. I want to thank you so much for joining me on the program today. We'll continue to study through Matthew going into next week. Until then, may God bless you. Have a wonderful day.